apparently Kevin Durant thinks that he belongs in the GOAT conversation. This is something that he said a couple days ago on Twitter. It's a classic KD tweet. Kofie, why do you think that KD thinks he belongs in the GOAT conversation?
I think KD, if he looks up at Basketball Reference and sees all the accolades next to Kevin Durant, he'll be like, oh, yeah, I've made this many All-Star games. I've been the Finals MVP twice. I've won the championship twice. I was an MVP. I was a scoring leader. Like, I feel like he sees all of these accolades and is like, yeah, I understand why he thinks this. But then we realize that we often be like, okay, yeah, you won a championship ring, but how did you do it? It's like the classic how we as like sports media move goalposts around, where it's like this championship ring is somehow weighs more than the other in terms of like legacy score, and then we get into the all like other kinds of scoring and stuff like that. It's like when you play Monopoly, where it's like you have this much money, but like how many hotels are on the property, so I feel like for Kevin Durant, I feel like he has a lot of properties, but he doesn't have like hotels on certain properties, if that makes sense. I don't know if that made any sense as an analogy.
I think you're cooking, bro. I think you're cooking.
But like, yeah, I feel like at face value, you take the looks at like all of his accolades and you're like, oh yeah, sure. And then you take the face value of like Steph Curry's accolades and you're like, oh yeah, okay, that makes a lot more it's a lot more compelling of a case over there. But that's not, I feel like that's not a slight to Kevin Durant, because we're talking about the greatest player of all time.
Yeah.
That's such a high bar that even him being around the room of that, you know what I'm saying? Like that's still a great accomplishment in of itself. I feel like two things can be true. Kevin Durant has accomplished a lot in his lifetime in his NBA career, and he still has a lot left to go in terms of how he's playing at this age, which I don't think we should be taking for granted, especially after an Achilles injury. Yeah. But even still, the greatest player of all time is such a high bar thing that like I just can't really, I'm not going to ever be like, oh, Kevin Durant. I'm never going to do that. So
I would say one, fantastic analogy, Kofie. Two, you mentioned the moving the goalpost. It's funny to me because if you ask this at different points in time, the answer would be different. 2 years ago during the Brooklyn Nets final run, Carson and I did a show with friend of the show back when we were on Blaze Radio at ASU. We did an all-time NBA players draft, and I had the turnaround pick. I had picks, I believe 3 and 4 in our draft, and I took Kevin Durant and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I had him in my top 4 because of his skill set. And at that point in time, I thought it was the right pick. I wouldn't make that same pick right now. And Kofie gave you the Monopoly analogy. I'll give you another one. KD's off that good, fellas. You know, he's up in his head, man. He's a little delirious. I understand where KD is coming from and his perspective, like you said. He thinks he was the best player on back-to-back stacked Warriors teams. He thinks he climbed the mountain. And you look at his numbers. In those 2 playoff runs, he's 29-8-4 on 65% true shooting. He's 29-8-5 on 64% true shooting. They're all-time runs. In 2 series versus the Cavs, I mean, they're 2 of the greatest finals ever played. 32-9-6 on 54-45-94 splits, but they're the 2 most meaningless rings in NBA history, right, guys? I mean, I'm sorry, KD. Like, when we were doing this, when we were comparing this to other climbs up the mountain, KD has never been the guy on the team. That was the point of him going to Brooklyn. And I thought KD had the self-awareness to understand that that's why he did it. And so I don't know, man. Until KD is the guy. But like you said, Kofie, I don't think that's a slight. If you were one of the 15 greatest players in NBA history, that's not a disrespectful. You are. Like, KD's a GOAT. I'd take him in a heartbeat. Like, just because you're not the GOAT, it's not a disrespectful thing to me, man. And I'm sorry, KD would not be in my top 10. He would be top 15, and that's not disrespectful at all. I think that's just appropriate.
That's the range that he belongs in, and I think that you guys are both, of course, completely right about how different rings do carry different weight. The circumstances, the competition, and of course the context of your supporting cast, and there has never been a more overwhelmingly great supporting cast in NBA history than that of the 2017 Golden State Warriors. And it does absolutely matter that other guys within his generation have climbed the mountain on their own. They have done it, overcoming those circumstances and whatnot. But to me, the reason that KD thinks that he is in the GOAT conversation and that there are people out there, I'm sure, KD stans who think that he belongs in the GOAT conversation, says something fundamental about how certain people view basketball. And although his accolades are great, they're not GOAT level. They don't compare to LeBron's, right? Really, across the board, LeBron is going to have an edge in every way there. What it is an infatuation with basketball aesthetics, and
That boy
specifically
nice.
the aesthetic of one-on-one scoring. It is basically the that boy nice theory, Logan. But why are there people who think that Kobe should be in the GOAT conversation? Sure, there's Lakers pull, but to me, the fundamental reason is that he is perhaps the most skilled basketball scorer ever when you are talking about difficult shot making, when you are talking about balance, body control. His versatility as a scorer was outstanding. Footwork, outstanding. Those things are highly valued in basketball culture. But there are things that are more valuable. If you are LeBron James and you can get to the rim at will, or if you are Kobe Bryant and the way that you are getting shots is these tough contested turnarounds, the latter may be more impressive visually. The former is more effective. If you're getting to the rim all the time, you're going to make 65, 70% of those shots. If you're taking tough turnarounds all the time, you're going to make 40, maybe 45% of those shots. And KD is different than Kobe in that he has such an overwhelming size advantage, and he is so brutally efficient as a jump shooter that he can get good shots from the perimeter basically at will. But it's still the fact that he is this super smooth, outstanding one-on-one scorer. When you look at the other traits that make for the all-time great basketball players, as a playmaker, KD is solid. He is good. But his overall offensive impact isn't, to me, that of a Steph Curry because of Steph's off-ball value, because of Steph's playmaking, or a LeBron James because of LeBron's brilliant playmaking, his imposition on the rim. And that's just within his own generation. And then when you look at the totality of these guys, most of the all-time great, every player who is in the GOAT conversation, and I think there's only three who most people will even throw out there, of course LeBron and MJ, but also Kareem, are all-time two-way forces. And that's just not the case for KD. So to me, the argument for KD as the GOAT is one that, yes, is about basketball skill. It's not about results, because in terms of results, team impact, I don't think KD has an argument, but it's a particular type of basketball skill that we value the most. Because if you're talking about skill set, some people might say, well, KD is the GOAT there. But I would argue that LeBron has more basketball skill, right? Because he is a freight train who is better at all of these non-scoring things, and he's so physically imposing as a scorer that he still comes close to KD's effectiveness, but because it's not necessarily as pretty, people don't consider it quote-unquote skill. So it reminds me of like all the youths, all the young kids of our age saying that Paul George is their GOAT. It's because Paul George is smooth as hell. It's because Paul George is 6'9", and he's got a tight handle, and he's athletic, and he's a hell of a jump shooter, but these specific skills that people enjoy and like aren't necessarily what make the best, most impactful basketball players at the end of the day.
This is hilarious to me, Brett. It is the quintessential that boy nice versus analytics debate here, man. Like stylistical winner versus, is he tough? And
KD's tough.
KD's
KD's
tough as hell, man.
He is.
I don't know. Would it take, like, in your guys' eyes, like, hypothetically, say the Suns figure it out, like, would a title with this Suns team make a meaningful difference to you in KD's historical stature?
Yeah, but it wouldn't put him in the GOAT conversation.
I think it would a little bit. I mean, I think it would. I don't think it, again, I feel like there's such a steep hill to climb still somehow after all of this, because he has to climb multiple people in legacy, right? I think that's the tough part, where it's not like there's one person that you're like thinking about. It's not like LeBron, where it's just like, even where it's like there's only one person left. For a lot of like MJ fans, it's just like he's the last person. For KD, it's like a whole tier of people that you have to clear. I do think Kevin Durant's like defense is underrated throughout history, but it's not. I don't think it's one where we like bring up next to like a LeBron and be like, oh. Yeah, I agree on that point.
Can I ask you guys something? Like, do you think it's a debate for you historically, even with health concerns, like between Kawhi and KD?
Peak to peak?
Peak to peak.
I think it's really close.
Yeah.
I think it's really close. And honestly, I would probably take peak Kawhi because of the absolutely dominant wing defense. And I agree with you, Kofie. I think that KD has been a good defender when he wants throughout his career because of the value that he has as a secondary rim protector, as an interior defender, really. But Kawhi could just reach this all-time defensive level as a wing. And then as a scorer, could really go toe-to-toe with KD in terms of production and efficiency because he's so damn strong. He gets to his spots at will, and then he is that assassin shot maker. Obviously, KD's had the greater career because he's been healthier and he's been at this level for so much longer. But peak to peak, it is really close, and I honestly think I lean Kawhi.
I think I do too, man. I know they always compare him to the Terminator, man, but game to game, Kawhi is KD's unstoppable too. Kawhi feels more inevitable. I think I agree, bro. Again, historically, I don't know the totality. KD may be higher, but I think I'd take Kawhi's peak too.
I think I flip back and forth. Honestly, like it's so tough because I would love to just have both of them, like either one of them on my team. I'd be like, okay, fine, let's do it. Like, I do agree that Kawhi just adds an extra oomph on defense for sure. Like, just an absolute stalwart. And I feel like stopping your opponent's team best player is like so important when, especially when you're able to produce on offense at the same, like not the same level, but like a tier below a little bit, just like a small step below. But yeah, I think they're neck and neck for sure. I'm gonna lean KD though. A little bit.
It's crazy close. And I don't want to undersell how ridiculous KD was, not just in the 2 title runs, in 2019 before he got hurt, in 2021 with the Nets, but I also think that there is a variance to his game because I don't want to be holding 30-something-year-old KD playing at an unbelievable level against him, but it's like when you can impose yourself physically at the level that a guy like Kawhi can, you are subjected at times to, all right, well, all of these pull-up jumpers aren't falling, and that's what happens in a series against Boston 2 years ago where you're dealing with great perimeter defenders, you're made uncomfortable. Kawhi hasn't had a down series like that since he hit his peak, dude. Kawhi has been consistently unbelievable in the playoffs. It's like every time that he gets to the playoffs, we're like, all right, damn, yeah, this guy, no matter how many games he's missed, no matter his regular season production, he's clearly a top 5 player on the planet. He might be higher than that. And that's been the case since 2016. The guy just keeps getting hurt. But that's an interesting one. It's very tight, in my opinion.